So let's get into this a little bit. I already covered this, but I want to revisit it. 4 out of 10 individuals on a spectrum are nonverbal. They do not talk. But that does not mean they cannot communicate, and it doesn't mean they don't understand or can't process what is happening. Okay, that's critical that you keep that in mind. I know I've beaten you over the head with it, but it's critical that you keep that in mind when you are deployed or respond to a missing person search. Okay. Number 2, seconds matter. Okay. Remember, when I was flailing looking for my son, 15 minutes had gone by. If that was going to turn to tragedy, I was just hemorrhaging seconds. If he was in trouble or drowning, God forbid, in a water park, while I was just losing my mind and not asking for help, he could have been in severe danger. Okay, seconds matter. For some reason with cops, especially, I've lived this and I kind of understand it. When you get called, dispatched to a call, you don't want to be the guy or the girl. You don't want to be the cop who overblows the situation and starts calling in for backup and requesting air assets and canine. You don't want to make a situation. You don't want to be perceived as overdoing it or overreacting to a situation. So we kind of take these calls slowly because we want to make sure that we appear calm and under control and not panicking. Okay, and that's a very legit kind of universal mindset that we have. We don't want to be the guy who's running around like our head's cut off. And what that does is when you get these calls where little Johnny's missing from his home and he has autism, we kind of wait and we kind of look around the house for a couple minutes and do this cursory search in the yard and talk to mom. And we hesitate to call for help and assistance. And we hesitate to activate assets that take some time to ramp up and stage, like canine, like air assets, like volunteers, like first aid and fire, search and rescue groups. We don't do that right away. We kind of try to find him ourselves first. And while we're doing that, seconds are ticking away, and they could be critical seconds. I'm asking you for professional courtesy. I'm asking you to put that away during these types of calls. These types of calls are critical, and seconds do matter. I'm asking you to start these assets right away. As your dispatch, get your volunteer mechanism rolling. Have your fire and EMS and volunteers, get them started. Okay, if you have canine close by or another town or a county dog is close by, get them moving. Okay, before you even get there, just get these things rolling, because the worst case scenario is you're there 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes in thinking that the kid's going to pop up any minute and realize, oh my God, I'm over my head. This is really a serious situation. It's 110 degrees out and this kid's running around in the woods, or it's 5 degrees out and he's running around. You don't want to be 45 minutes in and then have to deploy these assets, because by the time they get staged and respond to the scene, we're in a lot of trouble. Okay, so I'm asking you to get these guys moving, get these volunteer organizations moving quickly. It's easy to cancel them. All right, I'd rather that and tell them, okay, he's found, go home, than have to try to play catch up. Does that make sense? These search and rescue groups, I don't know where you are. I don't know where you are watching this. I have had a lot of interactions with these search and rescue civilian organizations around the country, and I'm here to tell you that they are amazing groups of people. They live for this type of situation. They train for it. They train on their own time. They're not being compensated. They're good at it. They care, and all they want to do is help. That's all they want. For some reason, police especially were kind of hesitant to bring in outside assistance, whether it's a responsibility thing or we don't value what they can bring, or it's an ego thing. We hesitate to bring in outside groups. These search and rescue organizations can provide, if nothing else, and they do provide a lot more, but if for no other reason, manpower, just sets of eyes that you can deploy and station and put places that well beyond your abilities as a police squad. I know manpower is what it is, and you're probably working with a very bare bones set of personnel on any given shift. And it's very hard to do all the things that we're going to talk about that we have to do for a responsible search with 4 or 5 cops covering 16 square miles of territory. So if nothing else, these search and rescue groups can provide manpower, eyes, and you'd be wise to use them and bring them into the fold, okay, quickly. Not 2 hours in, very quickly. All right, there's some basic, if you get dispatched to these calls, there's some basic information that you have to gather quickly and disseminate. And this is beyond a name, address, telephone number, and things like that. All of that's a given. I mean, after that, within the first 30 seconds, you want to get these nuggets of information out to as many people as possible, because it's going to affect and dictate the rest of the search. Okay, and I want to go over these right now. Number 1, are they dressed appropriately? Okay, whether it's 110 in the summer or it's -20, is the individual dressed appropriately for the weather? Okay, are they wearing shoes? Are they wearing a coat? And number 1A is, will they keep them on? Okay, my son is notorious for kicking off his shoes the first chance he gets. He doesn't like wearing coats. He doesn't like wearing heavy clothing, and if he goes out in a coat, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to come back with one. Okay, and things like, well, if I take my coat off, I might get cold and freeze, do not register in his mind. It's not that I think he understands the danger. It just, he doesn't think that far ahead, and his need in the moment to shed that burden of a coat overrides whatever danger he understands about the situation. So you need to know that. You need to ask the parents and caregivers those types of questions, because an individual who wanders out their backyard, their back door in the wintertime, in the snowstorm, not wearing shoes, is critical. And you have to know that, and you have to disseminate that information quickly. That changes the focus of everything moving on. Okay. Number 2, how do they communicate? Now remember, nonverbal does not mean can't communicate. So you have to know, how do they communicate? If they use sign language, great. If they use, I'm just checking my thing here. If they use a PEC system like we talked about, get that out. If they use a device, either an app on a cell phone or one of these communication devices, they kind of look like a speak and spell, or an iPad, or writing, or if it's just, well, he does kind of have some language, whatever that is, whatever that answer is, get that out to people. Okay? Don't just go to a house and say, well, my daughter's nonverbal and she's autistic, and say, and dispatch to everybody, well, we're looking for a 7-year-old nonverbal autistic girl. No, that's not enough. How does she communicate? Because she does communicate in some way. And it's up to you to figure out how, get that information from mom and dad, and get it out. Okay? If they use a device, assistive communication device, do they have it with them? Do they have it in their pocket? Will they drop it? Okay? Was it charged? That'll give you some timeline of how quickly you have to get to them before they lose their ability to communicate. Okay? Things like that. Get that information and get it out. Number 3, will they understand they're lost? Now this is critical. Okay? Will they seek shelter? Will they seek to get dry or keep dry if it's raining? Will they seek to keep warm? Do they understand these types of things? You won't know until you ask the parents. Like, will they understand that they're lost? And just listen to the answer. You might get, well, no, he really can't comprehend things like that. And that'll tell you that you're dealing with a lower functioning individual, and this is a critical call. Okay, I want to tell you a story that a follower of my Facebook page shared with me, and I never fail to share it because it crystallizes everything we're talking about. She had an 8-year-old son, we'll call him Billy, who was verbal, high functioning, autistic. And Billy was a runner. Every chance he gets, he would run, and they'd have to keep constant eye on him to make sure he wasn't running away or wandering. they were so afraid of losing him, and they have lost him so many times, that they actually just attacked it. And they sat him down with lessons, and they taught him his name, his address. They taught him what to do when he gets lost, to find an adult, to find a police officer, to go to somebody of authority and tell them that he can't find his mommy and daddy, and that he knew his address, and he knew his phone number, and they hit it from all the angles, and they drilled it into his head what to do if he ever got lost. They did it so much that they actually thought, we got this. He's 8 years old now. Every time we test him, he nails it. We can now take a sigh of relief that now Billy understands what to do if he ever gets lost, and we can kind of put that behind us now, that fear, that anxiety of losing our child. One day they went to the shopping mall in their neighborhood, and Mom was checking out something at a store, and she was fiddling with her purse, and she lost track of Billy, and Billy did what he did, and he kind of walked away. She looks down, Billy's gone. Okay, oh my God, where'd he go? She goes through this psychological process. She looks for him for a little while. It turns into a pretty large-scale search where they shut down the exits of the mall. They brought in security. They brought in the police. They did this search of the entire grounds, and it took a couple hours. They end up finding Billy at another store on the other side of the mall, back in the corner of the store. He had been attracted to some toy aisle, and they found him and brought him back to Mom. Unharmed, he was fine. When they brought him back to Mom ran up to him, hugged him, cried, and when she finally got her wits together, she took him by the shoulders. She's shaking him. She's like, Billy, what happened? What happened to the plan that we had? You know what to do when you get lost. Why didn't you do what we taught you? We've been looking for hours. Why didn't you do something? Why didn't you do what our plan was? And Billy looked at her and said, Mom, I wasn't lost. We're at the mall. We come here every day. I know exactly where I am. I just couldn't find you. And it really registered with her that with all this training they had done, with all this education and all these things they were teaching their son about what to do when he's lost, they forgot to start with the very basic concept of agreeing upon the definition of lost. Because in Billy's mind, lost meant out in the woods, wandering around, not knowing where your home is. Okay, it's just not knowing where he was. They hadn't agreed on what that lost could mean. Mom and Dad can't find me. I have to be with Mom and Dad. They forgot that step. All right. So understand that the very definitions you're talking about may be different to that individual. And they may not understand they're in danger because they're in their own neighborhood. They're not lost. They know where they are. So these things you have to weigh, and you have to make sure that you probe Mom and Dad or the caregiver to say, listen, does he understand what's at stake here? And get those answers and then disseminate that information. All right. This is key. One thing you have to find out quickly. Will they fear discipline if they're found? Whether they think they're going to be in trouble with Mom or Dad, or they're going to be in trouble with the police. Do they think they're going to be in trouble when they're found? Now, like I said, they could be nonverbal, but that does not mean these individuals aren't capable of spite, of trying to stick it to Mom and Dad and spite them and hide. Ask Mom and Dad, were you fighting? Were you having an argument before you left? Before you can't find him? What was his mindset? I have been 3 feet from missing kids, calling their name, and have them not respond, and tucked in a bush or underneath a tree, and not respond to me, not because they weren't verbal, because they were verbal, but because they, for the first 7, 8, 9 years of their lives, their parents had told them that, you see that police officer over there? If you don't behave, he's going to bring you to jail. And they had beaten into these kids' heads, figuratively, that the police are the discipline and they're going to bring you to jail if you don't behave. So when the children go missing and there's a police officer in his uniform with his police dog calling their name, of course he's not going to answer. He doesn't want to go to jail. That information you have to know. And the only person that can give it to you is the caretakers and the mom and dad. All right, so ask them, if I find your child, does he think he's in trouble? Just like that. And that question always worked for me because it gave me insight into their functioning ability, because the answer will tell you a lot. If they answer, oh no, he doesn't understand trouble, he doesn't kind of operate on that level, then you understand where you are on a functioning level with that individual. If you get an answer like, oh yeah, he knows, he knows he's going to get it when he gets home, then you know that parent has taken a disciplinary approach with this child, and you have to be extra cautious and use your eyes more than calling out his name. And be prepared that when you do see him, he might run from you. He might run because he doesn't want to get in trouble. All right, all of that comes into play. Another thing you have to find out is, do they understand danger? And you have to really probe in this. Do they understand the danger of heat and cold exposure? Do they understand the danger of traffic and not wandering into the street? Do they understand the danger of heights? And most importantly, do they understand the danger of water?